And I am coming to you tonight from Calgary. Here, politics is being fought riding by riding, street by street, and candidates are really wrestling for control of the story before voters have the final say.
If you want to continue to benefit from our hard work and our resources, you have to let us develop those resources.
Jason Kenney wants the focus to be on Alberta's economic pain, made worse, he says, by anti-Alberta forces outside the province, aided and abetted by Rachel Notley's NDP.
The NDP in this province was always against our energy industry.
We've done everything to lay out the case to Albertans that we can.
Notley has been trying to capitalize on a string of scandals for the United Conservative Party.
There were incidents that occurred that we would not have talked about them if they weren't there.
An effort to paint a Kenney government as unethical, intolerant, or risky, as per this full-page ad in the Calgary Herald yesterday. Taken together, this campaign has been nasty, fueled by innuendo and outrage, but so far that isn't turning voters away. Advance voting ended yesterday. It was easier than ever, and compared to 2015, the number of voters who cast their ballots nearly tripled. I can tell you that here right now, there's a sense of stakes for this election. The economic slump, the bitter debates around pipelines and even social issues, all that snap people's attention to politics. But as Rafi Pujakanyan tells us, that means facing a lot of hype and half-truths pushed by parties and outside groups.
When it becomes slandering on other parties coming from what they say is a credible source.
These young voters say they're pretty savvy when it comes to separating fact from fiction on social media, but they can still be surprised by claims in this campaign.
Why do we have a man like Jason Kenney telling us women what our healthcare needs are?
Take this video advertising a website paid for by the NDP.
Really? That's quite unfortunate because even if I don't like Jason Kenney, the way that they're portraying this and how sensationalized and look at the red and the black.
It's not just political parties battling it out on social media. Third-party political action committees are also slagging political opponents, playing fast and loose with facts. Alberta placed limits on how much money these groups can spend in the election period, but none on how much they can raise. These groups have been at work elsewhere in Canada. Ontario Proud raising hundreds of thousands of dollars last year, supporting Doug Ford and attacking his rivals.
We do know social media play a role, influence how people think about politics. We don't know to what extent it's actually going to influence how they're going to vote.
CBC News reached out to several PACs involved in the Alberta campaign. Only one, Alberta Fights Back, agreed to an interview. It advocates for separation from Canada, using posts like this one, linking to a CBC documentary about ISIS and falsely saying the broadcaster wants war criminals to return to Canada.
I'm not the only one who holds that sentiment in Alberta or even in Canada. A lot of people are concerned and saying, why are the major broadcasters doing this?
The very fast evolution of social media.
The NDP insists it does not engage in fake news.
We want to have a fact-based conversation in this election. We don't want this to turn into Trump 2.0.
But the party released a video it calls a documentary attacking the United Conservative Party's Jason Kenney for comments decades ago about his role as a student activist fighting gay rights. The video didn't mention he stated regretting those views years later.
This is the course of the campaign from day to day. You can see it going through.
This political scientist says citizens have to bring a critical eye to content they find online.
The idea that we can force politicians, political strategists, volunteers to tell the truth during election campaigns not only flies in the face of centuries worth of politicking throughout the world, but it's also not really putting the onus where it needs to be.
Jason Kenney and the United Conservative Party say if they form government here, they'll create a war room dedicated in part to fighting what they call fake news about the energy industry. Rafi Pujakanyan, CBC News, Edmonton.